Does Iran need the bomb? Emphatic answer, yes. Only an idiot would say, or an Israeli spy would say, we do not need a bomb. Iran probably is the best case for nuclear weapons today. In fact, the Houthis, who we expected to last the longest, have collapsed first. Imagine, so there's an old dictum of war. It doesn't matter what you fight with. What matters is how you fight with what you have.
I wanted to ask you about the F-35 hit.
Always. The most advanced equipment are either taken out by the most advanced equipment or the least advanced. Even the B-2 bomber can be detected by 1950s era radars. Naval fires are the deadliest thing around.
You actually think it's Israel's war and there is some kind of arm twisting happening related to the Epstein files?
If you look at it logically, yes, it is Israel's war. Biggest beneficiary of this war is surprisingly China and Russia. Have I confused you well and good?
I'm joined by Abijit-Iyer-Mitra. Current geopolitical scenario, it's bubbling completely.
Yes.
Did you see this war happening पहले से ही?
देखो हमको पता था round 2 होगा.
Hmm.
And we knew that there's going to be not the exact time, not the exact time. But I think from January, it became very, very clear that something was going to happen. I think by early January, late December itself, we knew something was going to happen. Not the exact time, that you will never know. And the moment negotiations started, because you remember it was during negotiations the last time that they decided to start bombing.
Exactly.
I kind of expected some bombing to happen during negotiations, the first round, which I think was about 7-8 days before, or maybe 2 weeks prior.
Around February 14th? Somewhere.
Early to mid, I forget the exact dates. So I actually expected the bombing to start then. It didn't. It happened before the second round of talks, or during the second round of talks, before the second round of talks was meant to begin. So yeah, I think this time at least we were quite clear कि bombing शुरू होने वाला है. But we knew from round 1 itself, actually even before round 1 started, I always believed round 1 would be a proof of concept. And if the proof of concept went well, then something big would have to happen. And it's very simple. Let me tell you why. You know, if a country has weapons of mass destruction, you can't just remove uranium, blow up factories, and get rid of it. The same way, you know, Germany and Japan were powers before the war and they became major economic powers after the war. Why? Because it's human capital you invest in.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you say we're going to take away like people associated with that nuclear program, will be something like about 10 to 12,000 in depth. 10 to 12,000 people, you're telling them you and your families have to leave Iran. You can't stay there. What about their human rights, boss? They have a choice. I want to stay on and, you know, maybe later on, I will restart the nuclear program. There's nothing you can do. So unless you remove the human capital, just a fresh infusion of economic capital can restart your nuclear weapons program. So it was basically never going to happen. And let's be very clear, even after this bombing, even if they bomb Iran to, you know, absolute, if they do to Iran what has happened to Gaza, even then Iran will be able to rebuild its nuclear program.
And why do you say that? Is it because of the underground facilities
No,
that
not
they
the
have?
underground. It's just human capital. As long as human beings are there. After all, who knows how to build it? Once you've run a factory, you know how to do it. You know what is all required. You'll just do it again. It's like, you know, say you go bankrupt today, but tomorrow if you get a fresh infusion of cash, you can start a new business. You'll avoid the same mistakes you made. You'll make all new mistakes, but you'll start a successful business again, right? It's like that.
Like you have the experience, you have the wherewithal, you know it, you want to do it.
Yeah.
And also like you might have backers, strong backers, in this case, Russia, China.
So here's the thing. I don't think anybody should ever count Russia and China as strong backers. In fact, they're the worst kind of backers you can ever get. Remember, Russia is not the USSR.
Yeah.
The USSR would back you up to a point, but not beyond a point. So even them, so the Americans are very blatant. When their allies do hera fairy, they are like, he's a bastard, but he's my bastard. Therefore, he's doing very good. They will go out of their way to support you. So, for example, during the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s, everybody knew that Iraq was the one using chemical weapons against
Right.
Iran.
Right.
Everybody knew at that time that he had used chemical weapons against his own people, the Kurds in the north, in Halabja, in the Halabja chemical weapons attack. The Americans ran a whole National Geographic series, a Time magazine series, a Newsweek magazine series saying, no, 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 no. It was the Iranians who used chemical weapons on the Kurds. I mean, think of it logically. Why would the Iranians bomb an Iranic people? So, the Kurds aren't Arabic speaking, they're an Iranian affiliated language. Why would they bomb them when they are rebelling against enemy number one, who is Saddam Hussein? Oh, they did it because, they wanted to give Saddam Hussein a bad name.
Like a
So you
false
should do-
flag attack. for
So,
that.
they do all this kind of shit, but they back their allies 100%. Till they don't. So, for example, Taiwan, when the stakes were so high, when China's approval was so valuable, they dumped Taiwan in favor of China. That was in 70.
Accepting the one China policy.
Yeah, accepting the one China. I mean, one China policy, you can also recognize. You either recognize Taiwan or you recognize China.
Right.
Because both of them will cut off ties with you if you recognize the other. So, it's one of those things. So,
But one was becoming close, one was coming close.
Yeah.
And USSR was...
Taiwan was very important to them, but the moment the Sino-Soviet rift happened,
Exactly.
the relative value of Taiwan went down. So then they'll dump you. So you have two interests. One is you have to make yourself relevant to America, and you have to operate in American interests. And as long as you do that, they will back you to the hilt. Okay.
Right.
The moment you stop being relevant to America, or somebody becomes more relevant to America, they'll dump you. The problem with Russia and China is Russia will dump you even if you're relevant to them, because they don't have the ability to help you. So the latest case was this Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict. Now, Armenia is a treaty ally of Russia under the CSTO Pact. Okay. What happened when Azerbaijan attacked Nagorno-Karabakh, what the Armenians call Artsakh? They're like, oh, see, technically, it isn't a part of Armenia, therefore we're not going to help you out. They were attacking Armenia proper, but they were like, no. They're attacking Armenia in order to encircle that, which is not technically a part of Armenia, therefore we can't help you. Okay. Who prevented the Armenians from annexing Nagorno-Karabakh and making it officially a part of Armenia? The Russians. They went on telling them, if you do that, we will sanction you. So this is one of those things where there was, if Armenia annexed, sanctions. If Armenia did not annex, you lose it. What kind of an ally is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they have lost the capacity for that.
They've lost the capacity to assist anyone. Okay. They used to do it pretty well in the 50s, 60s. But since the mid 70s, you can see that loss of will to assist also. And where they assist, they make a ham-handed thing, even there. So, for example, the first guy who kicked out the king in Afghanistan was a chap, I think, was it Babrak Kamal? Yeah, I think it was Babrak Kamal.
This is when?
The late 1970s.
Okay.
And late 1970s.
Just before the Soviet invasion.
And he was pro-communist. They wanted an even more communist government. So they go in and they sent their own Spetsnaz, the special forces, to kill a president who was pro-Moscow for a president who was even more pro-Moscow.
Which doesn't make sense that much.
Well, that's what started off the whole war.
Yeah.
Right. Effectively, that it was that one intervention that set everything. I mean, there is an argument that would have happened irrespective. But that one intervention kind of set off, I think it was Babrak Kamal, I forget the name. There's no naming diversity amongst Muslims. They're all, seriously, one of the
Muhammad Shahid.
One of the issues we have in counter-terrorism intel is that because everybody has a permutation combination of the same 10 to 15 names, you literally have to look at people's images and say, oh, this guy, this guy, this guy.
Right.
Of course, that's happening in India also now because everybody names their kid Rahul, Varun, Dhruv, Aryan, Ayan, Zayan, ऐसे I,
Mostly Bombay kids. I
but
was seeing that reel. Amisha की पार्टी में जा रहे हैं, उसके बाद नायशा की पार्टी में जा रहे हैं, उसके समायशा की पार्टी में जा रहे हैं, उसके
they've
बाद
all got all kinds of weird names.
yeah.
So, I mean, nobody names their kid Bhaktavatssalam or Venkatachalapati and things like
Yeah,
that.
those were the days.
Those were the days.
Vedic times.
Yeah, yeah. No, my granddad's name was Kalicharan Mitra. Well, yeah, great granddad. And my granddad's name was what? Golaknath Mitra. है ना? So
Was it
Kalicharan
the same
Golaknath.
person जो गोलकनाथ केस में है?
नहीं नहीं
The well-respected
no
Golaknath
not
case.
that one
नहीं,
not
नहीं.
that one नहीं नहीं not that one. And what was my dad's name? What did Golaknath Mitra decide to name his dad, his son, even though he was a cutter hardcore capitalist, absolute feudal
Stalin.
lord? He had 12 servants at home. They had a horse-drawn carriage, and all the servants used to wear GNM, Golaknath Mitra, inscribed onto their pagdis. This was pre-independence.
I thought like they were stamped.
No, they
I
weren't
was
branded.
stamped.
Don't worry, no. But pagdi pe, they used to wear it.
Yeah.
And what did he name his son? Guess. Any idea? Lenin.
I was going after Stalin, but
Lenin.
So you are hyper-capitalist and you're the son of Mr. Lenin.
Who was hyper-socialist, who was the son of a hyper-capitalist.
Wow.
Who named his son after a socialist and turned his son. Actually, my father didn't turn socialist till he was selected for the Fulbright scholarship, shortlisted. But then in the interview, they're like, oh, you're Lenin. And, that time there was a McCarthy, anti-communist, this thing. Like, well, if you're not a communist, somebody in your family is a communist, so we can't give it to you. I think, I don't know if he was socialist before that, but that definitely turned him socialist.
Yeah, that would have actually rubbed on him the wrong way.
Yeah.
Coming back to the thing, you actually think China doesn't have the capacity or the will? Because
No, China is very different. Philosophically, they do not have allies. They believe that any ally is fine. There are some pluses that come with it, but there are lots of minuses that come with it. We don't want the minuses. So what we'll do is, for our interests, we will choose free radicals who are basically neighborhood में सबसे लड़ाकू जो uncle auntie हैं, who go put cases on everybody for everything, who will literally stand out on the road with an iron rod and beat up people's kids and things. Every colony has some freak show like that. No?
But
they will choose a freak show like that to terrorize the entire colony and keep it bogged down.
Right.
So that when China comes and buys the road outside your house and blocks your access, you won't have any time to focus on them. You'll still be focused on that uncle and auntie who are taking an iron rod and beating up kids.
So, in a sense, it is like, आप इतना disorder फैला दो कि China is the only one who comes and gives.
North Korea. They keep Japan and South Korea bogged down. You look at Pakistan. It keeps the entire neighborhood bogged down. So India can never compete with China because we're constantly looking over our shoulders with Pakistan. Afghanistan can't focus on stirring trouble in Xinjiang province because they will be consistently bogged down here. To such an extent that Pakistan bogged down the USSR in Afghanistan, remember? So Pakistan really bought its itna chota sa investment. They didn't have to give Pakistan much. Just give them a nuclear bomb, give the North Koreans a nuclear bomb, they keep the entire area bombed down. Iran didn't make the bomb fast enough. That was Iran's problem. Had they been smart enough like North Korea or Pakistan and made the bomb quickly, maybe things would have been different.
What role do you think the supreme leader had in this whole making the bomb thing? Because like as far as I have read, he was against making the bomb because it was irreligious. So I mean that kind of goes against your geopolitical power and your deterrence in the region.
See, they all say they're against the bomb till they make the bomb. And then the jurisprudence changes. So, for example, when this fellow, what was his name? Pakistan ka dictator in those days, Ziaul Haq.
Ziaul Haq.
Ziaul Haq, when he passed the Islamization ordinances, he had the Islamic courts had declared Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's nationalization program to be Islamic, to be within the egalitarian spirit of Islam.
Right.
The moment Ziaul Haq takes over, the same courts, I think 5 of the 7 judges or something, I forget the exact number, were the same judges also, then declared the same nationalization program to be un-Islamic. Okay, these things change. Jurisprudence can change completely, which is what will always happen. Okay? Jurisprudence can swing on a dime. So that is...
And by this you mean the Islamic jurisprudence?
Any jurisprudence, even Indian jurisprudence, Hindu jurisprudence, I can...
No, I mean like in the Islamic
I can
jurisprudence.
literally justify saying, if I want to, say I want to do caste-based discrimination in modern India. I can go and say, see, the Vedas says that they are all part of Bhagavan. The Brahmin comes from the head, the Shudra comes from the foot. Will you be okay? Will you be okay if I chop off your feet? Will you live if I chop off your feet? You'll die of blood, this thing, not to mention gangrene setting in and things like that. Therefore, caste discrimination, you have to work together. Working together as a body, you stay in the same place, you go to the same toilet, you eat the same food. The food the Brahmin mouth eats also nourishes the foot, right? I mean, and the foot does all the work to keep the heart working, which is technically the Kshatriya. I mean, the heart powers the arms and things like that. Okay, so great. Ye jurisprudence ho gaya. Then I can go to other shastras, which then advocate actual caste discrimination and say, oh, but see, this is what this thing says. Therefore, it cannot.
Exactly, like that's what I was saying, that the scriptures are too much in Hinduism.
All scriptures, even modern jurisprudence, you can turn it 180 degrees. Otherwise, why is it in America, abortion is declared a right and then it is declared not a right anymore? Well, they didn't do it that way. They did it a different way. That they decided it's a state subject, it's not a central subject.
Right.
And then states are then free to ban it individually, which is what all the Republican states then did. Not all, but many of them did, right? So this can turn. So let's leave aside the public statements, because public statements are never a good measure of policy, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons mein kya tha? What do we know? You do not need highly enriched uranium for your reactors. So when you go over 60%, why did you go up to 60%? Why did you go over 60%? Number one. Number two, why were you hiding all these facilities? Why did you have undeclared facilities that were reprocessing uranium? Number three, why were bomb plans consistently found over and over again? Why were you seen researching bombs? Okay, now, if you find all of this, is it a reasonable assumption that you're trying to make a bomb?
Absolutely.
Yes. Why were you in bed with the AQ Khan network?
What is the AQ Khan network?
That was Abdul Qadir Khan. He was the Pakistani fellow who was smuggling nuclear know-how to everybody. Okay. So we know that the Iranians, certainly, there were elements within the state that wanted to make a bomb.
Right.
And see, a fatwa is not a law, absolute law. The fatwa can be changed.
Absolutely.
So after you get the bomb, you'll say, well, these are exigent circumstances. For second Karbala, you need to avoid a second Karbala. We need in the Battle of Karbala, I forget, was it Hussein or Ali?
Hussein, it was Hussein.
Hussein, who did not have Zulfikar to use against Muvayya. This time we will see to it Zulfikar is in the hands of Imam Hussain. फिर क्या करोगे?
But like, do you agree to the point that considering the situation, the region that the Middle East was turning into, there were US bases popping up. Israel was very much belligerent. So there must be some people inside the Iranian bureaucracy and the higher positions in the political leadership who would be really wondering that what will be our deterrence if we do not get the bomb.
Does Iran need the bomb? Emphatic answer, yes. If I were an Iranian planner, I would say only an idiot would say, or an Israeli spy would say, we do not need a bomb.
Right. But then why did the supreme leader?
No, the supreme leaders lie. All leaders lie. Even when, so for example, what was our first nuclear test called? Smiling Buddha,
Silent Buddha in
PNE.
1974.
Peaceful nuclear explosive. Like, what you're going to use it to explore mines. When you want to dig coal from the ground or discover a new diamond mine, you're going to plant nuclear explosives to open it up. What is a peaceful nuclear explosive? Batao mere ko zara.
Maybe they suggested that in a way that we won't use.
So it is all tongue in cheek. So, oh, bombs are against our religion. Oh, peaceful nuclear explosive. Oh, smiling Buddha. We have got bombs because we want peace. It is bombs for peace. But so we always wrap it up. Now, if you're Iran, look at it this way. And I would say 90% of the fault is Iran's own fault. They played a very, very bad diplomatic game. They got the upper hand every now and then, but bad diplomatic game. Throughout the 80s, you alienated everyone around you. Everyone who was supporting you, you alienated them. The first ones were the first people you fooled were the French, who sent a report to the Americans saying, look, this guy is Khomeini is our guy. If he replaces the Shah, he will work with us. The second guy you fooled were the Americans. You said yourself, we will work with you, till you decide to take their embassy guys hostage. Okay. Then they turned on you.
That happened during 1979 only.
79 or 80.
Okay.
79, either the year 79 or 80, I forget, but in those 2 years. Okay. Then, because in 79, the USSR invades Afghanistan. The USSR welcomed you because they didn't like the Shah. The Shah was an American stooge. You turn on Russia also and you join the jihad against Russia in Afghanistan.
But did they?
They did. They were massive suppliers to this thing. They were completely intertwined in the Afghan jihad.
They were supporting through arms and men.
Arms, men, training, everything, and refugees. They took in millions of refugees.
Right.
Not just Shia refugees, Sunni
be...
refugees also. Okay.
But refugees wouldn't be that strong a position to take, as if like supporting the Afghani people.
Why?
Yeah, until you send them back, train and send them back.
Why?
Because like before that, you're not that hostile, you're not that aggressive, you're just taking in people. It can be for a humanitarian cause also.
It's never a humanitarian.
It can be, just I'm just
it
assuming.
It could be, but look, when you've already declared that Soviet Union is the enemy, then it's not for a humanitarian cause.
But there was a proper declaration for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Khomeini came and declared. He officially declared we're going to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Then China, you get pissed off with China. You know why? Because China was selling these anti-ship missiles both to Iran and to Iraq. And you were so outraged. You said we will not buy from China anymore. Okay. So you've alienated France, you've alienated America, you've alienated the USSR, you've alienated China. Now, during all of this, the one person supplying you covertly with arms for the Iran, what was called the Iran-Contra scam, was Israel. Israel also you go and piss off. जिसने भी तुम्हारे प्लेट में भीख दिया, उसके मुंह पे जब तुम थूकोगे, this is not good diplomacy. And in the end, what happened? You lost 600,000 people in that war. in the early stages, you were on the verge of winning it. In the later stages, you were on the verge of collapse, and it is at that point that Iran said, okay, we'll sign a peace. The peace had been on the table 6 years prior. The exact same peace that we will status quo antebellum, which is we'll withdraw to the day before, to the lines the day before the war started. So you fought for 6 years, you lost about 5 lakh more people. For what? Just to get back to the same border where you were 5-6 years back. Okay. Very stupid. Now, what happens after this? You're denied weapons. Your industrialization has stopped. Your oil facilities aren't so efficient anymore because oil pumps keep getting replaced to be more and more efficient. Because see, if you've seen an oil pump, it's a moving part, right? So it needs the fabrication to moving part. Erosion, everything is massive, right? Clogs and gears will always, because of the friction, it's going to whatever.
True.
You need to modernize. Not happen. So your Iran was richer than Taiwan and as industrially developed and richer than South Korea and Taiwan in 1979. Today, it could have been at the same place that Taiwan and South Korea. Where are they? We are catching up to them in terms of per capita income. So, what has happened since then is Iran did not get weapons. If you look at the Gulf, they all had much more modern weapons, still have much more modern weapons in much greater quantities than the Iranians do. What is the first requirement for a nuclear weapon? Where your military is so inferior that you need a balancer, which the nuclear weapon provides. Therefore, you need a nuclear. Second, how do you protect yourself conventionally? Exactly what after Pakistan lost 3 wars against us, what they do, they resorted to terrorism. So what do? You resort to terrorism. You're very successful at it. You create the whole Shia arc, Hezbollah, the Houthis. Then you start supporting Hamas, which is not Shia, but you still start supporting them.
The resistance axis, all of them.
And you're supporting this whole Syrian government, which was a Shia Alawite government. The Shias consider them heretics, but the Alawites consider themselves Shia. I mean, I've met Alawites who do not consider themselves Shia, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that. Because you create this very powerful arc, which runs as per diplomatic, more or less as per international games allow, till the 7th of October 23. And then Israel decides ki bhai, enough of this shadow thing, we're going to do it overtly and very openly. And that is when, within the space of 3 years now, all your allies have collapsed. You have gotten hit. Now, it is precisely to protect yourself against this kind of collapse that you then use nuclear weapons. So even in conventional terms, you need nuclear weapons. Even in sub-conventional terms, you need nuclear weapons. I have never seen a country more in need of nuclear weapons. Forget the morality, the legality, or the stupidity of their foreign policy and of their geopolitics. Iran probably is the best case for nuclear weapons today, which is why America and Israel have a case. They were trying to build nuclear weapons. There is an actual military need for nuclear weapons. And I'm sorry, we can't let them get nuclear weapons.
But with that, you said like when the countries resort to asymmetric warfare, when their conventional capabilities are eroded. But you see right now also the Houthis, they are even more ready for war. The Hezbollah wasn't backing down.
No. They're not ready for war at all. In fact, the Houthi capabilities are, where do you hear about, where have the drone strike, when is the last drone strike happened in the Red Sea?
No, I think the Red Sea hasn't been activated right now, but like they are
not
constantly,
activated. They are not ready at all. After the leadership was killed off in those Israeli strikes some few months back, they have gone very quiet. Naam ke vaste, they'll send a drone, but they're shitting their pants and they're very quiet. In fact, the Houthis, whom we expected to last the longest, have collapsed first.
I wanted to ask you about the F-35 hit.
Always. The most advanced equipment are either taken out by the most advanced equipment or the least advanced equipment. So it is usually the most stupid technology that ends up doing this. And this, I suspect what has happened with the F-35 is it's got a big fat ass engine that has a huge thermal signature, right? This is where I suspect what happened with the F-35 was that it was so hubristic. They had switched off their self-defense. They're like, they've got nothing to hit us. And this heat-seeking missile just came and boom. But there are many avenues. Remember, the highest technology very frequently falls victim to the lowest technology. A stealth plane, it doesn't matter how stealth you are, can still be detected by World War II radars and 1950s radars. Even the B-2 bomber can be detected by 1950s era radars. The problem with 1950s era radars is they can roughly tell you that it is coming there. They can't tell you the height. And they can't tell you much more. They can just say कि उधर से कोई आ रहा है. Then that radar also has to pick it up, which it won't pick up because they're all modern radars. So the kill chain gets broken.
So effectively, nothing gets killed.
Yeah. So you can kind of see it coming, but you can't stop it from coming.
Right.
Yeah.
But in some way, if you could just know that something is coming and use something very simplistic like the IR missile that they fired.
Yeah.
We
don't know what missile it was, but whatever it was, one weapon doesn't change the course of a war. There has to be consistent innovation across all kinds of things.
Right.
Which is why one F-35 getting hit really doesn't change.
But there was just one conversation that I was listening to, and in that conversation, I don't know, it was some military expert or some retired colonel from the American Army. And he was basically talking about the morale of the F-35 fighters now. So earlier, and in this way that they also had that hubris to supposedly shut down the sensors, the defense sensors. But they had this whole thing that we are basically we cannot be hunted down, and we are impregnable. We can do anything in the skies.
Yes.
That whole morale has broken down completely now.
And
you can get hit.
I don't think it's broken down completely.
Yeah, but like now something.
I don't see one hit doesn't demoralize. Let's be clear about that. We've had, and it's not new that this kind of hubris sets in. You turn off your defenses and get hit. There was the INS Hanith, the Israeli naval ship Hanith, which was a stealth corvette, which during the 2006 anti-Hezbollah campaign, during the 2006 invasion of Lebanon by the Israelis, bombing of Lebanon, bombing plus invasion, I forget, anyway, of Lebanon, they were so cocky, they're stealth, nobody can see us, they turned off the self-defense system. And sure enough, a Chinese-sourced missile came and hit them, killed lots of people on board. It was repaired and put back on sea, but it killed a lot of people and hit the ship. You've already had an episode like this with the F-117. Why would you be so hubristic?
Yeah.
Okay, why? It's pure hubris in my book. I think. We'll never know. We might get to know after a while, but we'll never know really. Why would you? And you know, we saw this hubris even in the last round, which was Operation Rising Lion in June, July, was it, of last year?
June last year.
Yeah. Where there were these F-15s, which are huge targets in the sky. They're very radar reflective. They were flying over Iran without a single air-to-air missile. Because they achieved such total air dominance, their attitude was, BC, tu mere ko kya kar lega? I'm only going to carry air-to-ground munitions. I will not carry air-to-air, and there's nothing you can do to me.
And nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
But why was that the case? If Iranians had the capability, why were they not hitting it at that time?
I think they built up this capability learning from what happened. I don't think they expected the kind of collapse that happened in June last year. So they see, one of the big mistakes people make is they assume that just because it's happening less, say just 9 months after
Hmm.
Rising Lion, the enemy would not have adapted. Not true. The enemy adapts very quickly. When their existence is survived, you know what they say, na? War is the mother of all innovation. Necessity is the
Necessity is
mother of
mother of
innovation,
all
but necessity
innovation.
comes about because of scarcity, which
Right.
war
Yeah, it's a
exacerbates,
war of
right?
survival. It's necessary.
Essentially.
It necessitates that you have
So
to live.
it's one of those things where too much hubris, and it, mind you, they've lost something like what, 19 aircraft so
Yeah,
far.
yeah. I mean, 19
four-
aircrafts have been hit.
About 4 tankers on the ground, 1 tanker that was actually hit, 3 F-15s shot down.
Which they say.
Which war?
Yeah, I mean, you see the Abraham Lincoln episode, the whole fire in the laundry room.
No. And was
Either it was a missile strike,
Yeah.
or
No, not necessarily. Laundry rooms do catch fire, and with the, was it the Gerald Ford that has, or the Jimmy Carter that has toilets not working?
I don't know that.
Yeah. Hitting an aircraft carrier, even with that kind of innovation, impossible. Even with a hypersonic.
I mean,
doubtful.
after all, the radars are down, so they have very less visibility of the domain of warfare.
But see, they're not in the Gulf. What has been damaged by the American radars in Bahrain being taken down is the Gulf detection system.
Right.
Which is why after the radars were taken down, the massive giant fixed array radars, the number of drones and ballistic missiles which were not getting intercepted increased significantly.
Right.
So that doesn't, remember, none of these 2 aircraft carriers is in the Persian Gulf. One is in the Mediterranean, one is in the Arabian Sea.
Yeah. And they moved out
Yeah.
after the warfare started, and they
No, I
realized
mean,
the capabilities
they
of the
moved
Iranians.
out a bit before. We should have seen it technically, because, you know, the Americans were meant to bring our Milan fleet review that was held in Vishakhapatnam, that
and they
the
did not
Iranians
join
had
it.
come
Yeah.
to. They sent 2 P-8 Orions. Is it Orion or is it Poseidon? Yeah, P-3 Orion,
Poseidon
P-9
isn't.
Poseidon. I forget the names, but they sent P-9s. They were meant to send a ship which pulled out last minute for maintenance issues. Initially, we thought it's because the Iranians are attending. No, it wasn't because the Iranians were attending. It was purely because they were diverting it for the campaign out there.
Right.
So it's, I don't see how they would have hit it. Because if you look at the long range equivalent hits, it's been on tankers near the waters of Oman, which were drones and UAVs. So it wouldn't have even affected the laundry room. It would have been an external fire. And people don't realize how dense the armor on an American aircraft carrier is. It's like,
But I've heard like the fire, it went on for 48 hours.
okay.
Is it possible that-
Yes. So naval fires are the deadliest thing around. Controlling a fire at sea is a nightmare. You'd think that's not the case because of water. It is precisely because of everything's been made waterproof that they turn so deadly. And the most dangerous thing is a fire on a submarine. Which is why, you know, there are protocols in submarine where you're heavily penalized, even if a little piece of cotton cannot be
Catches
left
fire.
lying around on a submarine.
One more thing about the radars that were destroyed in the Gulf. Some of the radars were very expensive. The one in Jordan was about $1 billion, $1.2 billion. And these radar infrastructures were spread around the Gulf. And Iranians have destroyed it. And their major source of attack was the missiles and the drones. And the radars being destroyed cannot be repaired I think it will take almost an year to repair them. So what do you see the future course of action here? Like, it seems to me like US would have to escalate or would have to just go out of the war completely.
Yeah, okay. So let's look at it this way. The economics favored the Iranians because, you know, they'd launch, say, $10,000 drones.
Yeah.
They launch 30 against any one target. Each interceptor costs several $1 million.
Right.
This is not an economics that works in favor of the Gulf countries or America. Even $1 million for a $10,000 this thing, if you look at it technically, $10,000 will at best buy you a scooter. $1 million will buy you a very, very good 5-bedroom, 4,000 square foot house in South Delhi. So I mean, for that $10,000, you won't even get a car.
Right.
So you're literally in the Indian context, you're looking at using a posh South Delhi 1,000 square yard flat to stop a scooter, and that was second-hand old Bajaj scooter. Okay, it wasn't going to make sense, but it is to stem that economic imbalance, that the bombing of all those. Now remember, the downside of all those missile production facilities in Iran is that they are all static. And one of the things everybody's moved away is from static facilities, because remember, even if the underground part is intact, because they've dug really deep, say 100 meters deep, you can bomb the entrance and the exit, which will entomb you. Okay? So you can still stop access to those missiles that are being built in there. And there's nothing you can do. And we've seen how precise those bombs and missiles are. So this was always going to be a war of time, where ultimately Iranian stocks, either stocks will run out or their ability to access stocks will run out. So far, they've managed to erode the batteries very, very significantly. The anti-aircraft batteries of the Gulf and America, they've managed to erode them very significantly. Okay? But we've also seen the number of attacks come down, but we've also seen the lethality of a lot of these attacks go up. They're using fewer missiles, but they're having a lot of impact also. This is only going to end one way, which is that Iran will run out of drones and missiles to hit the Americans with, hit Americans and the Gulf with. But what next? Okay, they run out. You'll bomb the living daylights out of them, which you already are. But they'll still survive. The regime will survive. Then what? Then you've still lost the war. Right?
But then why are they continuing the war?
Because this is what happens. No amount of advanced weaponry can save you from bad war goals and bad planning. You planned your war goals very stupidly. You planned very, very idiotically. Had you told me, had I been the planner out here, and Trump had said, Abhijit beta, how would you plan this? I would have planned, I would have not taken out the leadership. I would have planned specific, air campaign like last time, but ground operations where you move in earth movers and things to extract material. I don't know why they weren't prioritizing that. They're prioritizing killing off the leadership. Now, the problem with killing off the leadership, there are several dynamics to leadership removal. People believe it leads to a complete catastrophic collapse, which is what has happened with the Houthis, because the Houthis haven't really been sub bol rahe the na, oh, look at the brave Houthis, what they're doing and things. How did the Houthi thing end? The Houthis have ekdam quietly, they've been doing nothing for the last, ever since Israel killed those 40 Houthi commanders, all sitting together, and the Houthi leader all sitting together since then. So it has. So in the Houthi case, it has led to an actual collapse. Hezbollah, it led to a collapse initially, but then they kind of recalibrated and they've come about. Also, anyway, the second thing that happens when you do leadership decapitation is the next rung of leaders tends to be much more rabid, radical, and competent.
Competent as well.
Competent as well, because they know how to avoid getting targeted and killed. The previous Hezbollah leader was not as deadly as Hassan Nasrallah was. You have to
competent to evade.
Evade, and much more radical, much more rabid, much more nasty. Because they both go hand in hand. You have to be totally paranoid to be able to avoid all of this. And that paranoia also leads to much greater fundamentalism, hatred, and blah, blah to hit you back. So Houthi example is one example, but Hassan Nasrallah is the counter example. Not the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the killing of his predecessor which produced Hassan Nasrallah. Now, what has happened in Iran? They took a gamble that we kill off the leadership, it'll collapse. But I think anybody who had studied the leadership would know that the IRGC is siloized. They only take their orders from the leader, and they'd been from the supreme leader. The president is kind of, their president is almost as irrelevant as our president. Okay.
I mean, they share some powers, but like the
Not really.
maximum
Not
powers
naam
with the
ke vaste
supreme
they
leader.
share, but they don't really share.
Yeah, but
Technically,
everything
the
can be-
Ayatollah can veto anything
right?
that the president does. So what ends up happening is you kill off the leadership. Anybody who had done in-depth research on Iran would know that the IRGC has planned for a lot of redundancy like this. The problem is, after you killed off the leadership, what is the residual leadership dynamic out there? Number one, we will not nominate a leader because the moment we nominate a leader, he can be either killed off or blackmailed or used leverage against to rein in the IRGC. I think they even deliberately, I'm now increasingly believing that they chose an injured Mujtaba who would not open his mouth even though he is compromised, and everybody knows he is compromised.
Compromised by the
IRGC?
Americans. By the Americans.
Yeah. I mean, this has been, I've known this for like 10, 12 years because I've, conspiracy, I guess, but you know, I'd be taken out to literally every posh house I'd see in the suburbs of Tehran. My friends would be like, oh, this is owned by Mujtaba. That is owned by Mujtaba. That is owned by Mujtaba. And about 50% of it is true because he's a thoroughly corrupt fellow. Everybody in Iran knows it. Even clerics in private will tell you he's corrupt. We wish. Khamenei is incorruptible, but his son is a piece of shit. They're very used to the kids. They don't hold the imam responsible for what the kids do, which is quite hypocritical because the kids are only profiting because of who daddy is in that sense, right? And they also believed that there was the ability to deal with the situation because Rafsanjani was known as the pista king of Iran. All pista exports of Iran, which are very considerable, were run by his kids. And the moment he died, even towards the end of his life, all the monopolies had been taken away and his family had been almost ruined. Not ruined, but almost. So they always believed that Mujtaba could be controlled. The system would control Mujtaba. Anyway, so what ends up happening is, I believe now that they chose an injured Mujtaba so that he will not be able to rein in all these independent IRGC commanders. But also understand, anybody who's now willing to talk is marked as a leader, which means even if you're not going to be killed in the next 5 days, you will be killed after the next 5 days, in the next round. It also means nobody in the leadership council will advocate for peace, because the moment you say peace in the council, they'll think, see, why did this fellow survive? Why didn't they kill him? This is the mole that they've been killing the rest of the leadership to make him the leader. Arrest him and shoot him. So you have increased the radicalization, not radicalization. It's just sheer self-preservation. You will not say peace.
Yeah, but this is in a way radicalization as well, because now there'll be
even dynamic people would hold their tongue and not say peace at a time like this. I would say it's situational dynamism. I won't call it radicalization.
You see the case of the Secretary of the National Security Council, ex-secretary Ali Larijani. Ali Larijani was a very smart fellow. Like his doctoral thesis, and he had works on Immanuel Kant and his philosophies and whatever. And essentially, the whole defense strategy was prepared by Ali Larijani. He also ran for president and whatnot. So these people were kind of counter to the IRGC, the radicals in the IRGC.
Okay. Never make the mistake of assuming they were ever a counter to the IRGC. They all they aligned with or opposed the IRGC based on where they stood. There are people like Khatami. Musavi, who the Western press and Christian Amanpur will tell you were moderates. Khatami was the home minister under Khomeini, the original.
The original one.
When I first visited Iran, and my first memory in the old airport, not the current Mehrabad airport, the old airport, was when we were coming out, there were 3 people hanging from a crane. They don't do the, so in Austria-Hungary, they do the short drop method. In India, we do the long drop, British long drop method. So British long drop method of hanging is, it's very humane. It just snaps your neck. You don't feel it at all. You're dead even before you know you're dead. The only downside is if you've eaten anything, that sphincter control goes and
You should.
you shit. Which is why if you've ever seen gallows, they're always made with drain pipes that you can
Wash away.
wash and sterilize. The Austrians do the short, Austrians, Czechs, the whole of Austria-Hungary, Germany, they used to do the short drop method hanging, which was not Germany. Germany used to do guillotine, French guillotine. But you know, France, I think the last execution in France was in 1981 or something like that. And it was done by a guillotine.
Still.
Well, they banned the death penalty after that. It was done by the guillotine. In Germany also, it was mostly the guillotine, except in wartime, they do hanging. The short drop method is cruel. It doesn't kill you instantly, but it kills you fairly fast, but you feel death. You feel the choking, your neck is not snapped. It is a choking death. It is not a neck snapping death. Here, they do something totally different. They'll tie you to a crane and they'll slowly lift the crane so that you slowly choke to death. All of it was ordered by Khatami. The way in which Khatami went about executing people, moderate. Benjot kis cheez ka moderate? That's like saying compared to ISIS, Osama bin Laden is a moderate, which he was. Technically, if you look at the spectrum between Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and Osama bin Laden was a moderate.
So Khatami was at that time, what position
He was
did he hold?
president. He was the reformist president, so-called reformist.
Reformist
So understand, in Iran, this whole notion that you're pro or anti-IRGC, you're a moderate and a this thing, it is like, it is like in the American spectrum, it is like the difference between Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So in the Indian spectrum, it is like the difference between Prakash Karat and Sitaram Yechuru.
Essentially the same, almost the same.
Sitaram Yechuru is a Stalinist who wants to kill off all class traitors. Prakash Karat is a Stalinist who only wants to kill off half the rich people.
Which kind of makes sense because of the supreme leader at the top and the structure
Because
of the government.
of the way you have to be vetted.
Right.
It eliminates any real difference of opinion. You've got multiple shades of rabidism that floats to the top. Okay, so let's get this out that Larijani was in any way a moderate. He was never a moderate. Okay, never ever a moderate. Same. So even when he was the only guy left, there is this report that they went and killed him because they thought he was going to be the Americans believed, the Americans and the Israelis wanted him to be the leader who was left standing, but they turned against him after he decided on the crackdown against protesters in when the protest started end of last
December
year.
or January.
Last year,
Yeah.
right? That in itself shows me what pathetic Iran analysts you have working on this if you thought Larijani would be like that. You have to be a real blithering idiot to think that the system won't pick up on that and still promote him. Or that he would not prioritize regime survival. They think that because they got lucky with one idiot called Gorbachev, who decide to self-destruct his empire, everybody else is also like this. Sorry, it isn't like that. It isn't like that.
Donald Trump is actually looking for his Delcy Rodriguez in Iran, and that is why their decapitation strategy somehow failed, because the Iranians prepared for it beforehand. They created structures in which automatically people would promote after someone is killed in a decapitation strike. So in a sense, like, America finds that it has its hands tied off in this war, and they cannot really do anything. And with that, you see, like, the president consequently asks for a ground invasion, is actually hinting towards it. Do you think a ground invasion would actually happen? And is it really so that they were only looking for a decapitation strategy and they thought the war would be over in 10 days, which did not happen?
So one thing we know is their decapitation didn't go to plan. Very clearly.
Very clearly.
And see, the thing about Delcy Rodriguez is she had been cultivated for a very long time. So you can't just bomb everyone and expect somebody to emerge. See, you plan, and then you plan redundancies. What if plan A doesn't go right, then plan B, plan C? Clearly, they did not expect that. I think they were too much. See, the repeat pattern here is hubris, hubris, and more hubris. Because we got air superiority so easily over Iran last time, this time will also be a cakewalk. Because we prevented them from attacking anybody else, this time also they will not attack anybody else. They have not evolved their strategy. Because in Venezuela, we were able to get a
Maduro.
Delcy Rodriguez. Even if we don't already have a Delcy Rodriguez, some Delcy type person will emerge out here. Wrong, 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 wrong. And now even the ground troop thing, I think, is a replay of what happened in their minds. It's a replay of what happened in the Kosovo campaign. So in the Kosovo campaign, there was like, what, 50, 90 days, I think, of constant bombing. And it was actually fracturing the NATO relationship, because all the Eastern Orthodox NATO members were like, boss, this is an Eastern Orthodox church. You are bombing these guys. It is not producing the results you want.
Right.
You said you were not going to go in on the ground. People have forgotten how much friction within NATO that bombing campaign actually produced. And BBC and CNN were lying to their teeth, saying the longer this goes on, in fact, it is reinforcing NATO. Even countries like Greece that are convinced that it should not have happened are now convinced it should happen. All the interviews that happened after that, which all got buried, because you only remember coverage during the time of war, not after the war.
Right.
We're all like, boss, we were super upset with this. So all the initial whisper reporting, in those days, there was no Twitter for all the opposition to come out. It was very carefully managed by the media. They believe that after what happened there was, what, I forget, 50, 90 days, pata nahi kitne days of bombing. The Serbs gave up and they said, okay, we'll withdraw from Kosovo. Here, do you really think after 90 days of bombing, the regime is going to say, okay, we're all going to resign and we're going to have open elections? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Not going to happen. So they are replaying Kosovo in their head. And what happened at end of, well, towards day 70, I think, I forget the exact number. Okay. But after 2/3 of the campaign were over and it was not yielding results, they then started talking about boots on the ground, which is what scared the Yugoslav leadership of Slobodan Milosevic to say, fine, we'll give up on Kosovo. They think the threat and the movement of troops will be enough to scare the Iranians. But boss, this is not Serbia. This is 1.6 million square kilometers. It's half the size of India. It is almost entirely mountainous, heavily rugged mountainous terrain. Anybody who's taken an Emirates, Etihad, Qatar, Gulf Air flight from the Gulf to Europe and flown, they all fly over or used to fly over Iran, we'll see that even from the south, you start seeing snow-capped mountains. That is how those Zagros and the southern ranges are. The Alborz, the Zagros, and all of those ranges are. Boss, it's not happening. It was one thing invading it, Alexander invading it. Was all ground troops, horses and things like that, which is fine. Tum with 4,500 troops, you're not going to pull off an Alexander out here.
Exactly. Where would the
Okay.
invasion happen even?
Where would the invasion happen? So best of luck trying. And remember, this is a country that accepted 6 lakh dead in the Iran-Iraq war. You think for a few thousand dead, they're going to just roll up and die? No. No. Not happening, boss. Not happening. Maybe some miracle will happen and Mujtaba will come out of his coma or whatever it is and say, okay, you know what, we're holding elections. The Iranian will, maybe, but I would say that is maybe a 1% chance, 99% chance that this regime will continue. And see, ultimately, my definition of war is what Clausewitz wrote. I think he nailed it, where he said, victory in war is political. You can militarily lose the war, but still win the war. Classic example of that is the Tet offensive during the Vietnam War. So Tet, there were two factions of the North Vietnamese. There was the Viet Minh, which is the Northern Army, and there was the Viet Cong, which was Southern collaborators of the Northern Army, who had been trained and were living in the North. Now, Von Yun Jap and people like that had already started planning for a liberated thing, and they wanted to get rid of the Southern Viet Cong leadership so that only the Northern leadership would rule over the whole of, or would have absolute control. So they literally wanted to throw Viet Cong troops into harm's way. So they planned the Tet offensive. Tet is like their, to use a similar thing, say Diwali. It has, or the Yom Kippur. It is the day where every Vietnamese takes off, irrespective of if you're Christian, Buddhist, whatever. They launched the Tet offensive. Within 2 days, it is defeated. The mop-up operations took a week after that, and minor mop-up took on a month after that. But the very fact that they could spring surprise, because nobody was expecting it to happen, so many lakhs of troops pouring in, they got into Saigon and attacked the American embassy in Saigon, what is today Ho Chi Minh City. For you to pull all of that off, the morale of America shattered. Right? And their will to fight evaporated. The political will at home was like, boss, you may be holding them back, but we're not winning this war. The Tet offensive was a military disaster for the North, but it is the starting point of where North Vietnam won that war. Sindoor, we may have lost 5 fighters on day 1, but we hammered the living daylights out of them that day and every single day after that, but we lost the narrative. Exactly. So in the rest of the world, the narrative is Pakistan won. Even though on the ground, all the metrics, even including 5 lost aircraft or maybe 500, I don't know what the current Pakistani number is. I heard 7 being said, then I heard 20 being said. I don't know what. Let's assume we lost 500 aircraft. They didn't just shoot down all our Rafales. I believe they have a time machine and time and space machine, and their missiles actually went to the production facilities in France and bombed the production facility. So even the 114 were meant to get were bombed on the production line out there in France. That being the case, how do you account for the fact that on day 2, 3, and 4, we didn't lose a single aircraft? We were bombing them dhamadham, mast kalandar, and they weren't able to get a single goddamn hit in India. Okay.
But politically
politically, what happened is Pakistan's isolation ended.
Right.
They started getting invited to the White House.
Their profile went up in geopolitics.
They claimed they were invited to all these military academies to give lectures. They, in fact, begged all of them to invite their delegations to give lectures on a non-existent victory, which they got invited. All the people in those military academies know you chaps got hammered. But because you requested an invitation and we couldn't say no, we invited you, you spun that to show that everybody wants to learn from you. The general public in all those countries therefore believes that, oh, they got invited. Nobody cares about the fine print and the detail. Therefore, the general public myth is that Pakistan won.
Coming to the reasons for going to this war, the National Counter-Terrorism Center in USA, the head of the National Counter-Terrorism Center, Joe Kent, he resigned. And he resigned stating that this is not our war, this is basically Israel's war. And when you just do a basic assessment, it feels that Israel is the only one that is getting anything out of this war. And at the same time, when the first time Secretary Marco Rubio was asked about the same thing, he also said that there was intelligence that Israel was going to strike Iran, and Iran would, in retaliation, strike American bases. So during that, we did a preemptive strike, and that's why we went to war. And since then, the explanation has changed multiple times, but that was the first thing that was being said at that time. Do you actually think it's Israel's war and there is some kind of arm twisting happening related to the Epstein files or something related to that?
Look, I don't think there's anything with regards to the Epstein files that's being arm twisted out here. If you look at it logically, yes, it is Israel's war, even though Israel will try to tell you that this is a mad mullacracy that was going to bomb everyone around it. Unfortunately, the Iranians have actually proven the Israelis right. Because if they are getting hit for an Israeli attack on Iran conventionally, why would they not use a nuclear weapon on the Gulf countries tomorrow? You understand? So this is one of those things where Israel very counterintuitively is going to the Gulf countries and saying, see, we told you. You went on saying their nuclear weapon isn't a threat to us. It's only a threat to Israel. What do you think would have happened with something like this? You would have gotten hit as well. And the revenge attack, had it gone nuclear, do you think any of you would have survived and they wouldn't have targeted you nuclearly? Forget about it. There is also the other dimension of this, which is the Israelis thought that come November, they read the writing on the wall that the Republicans are going to lose Congress in November. They've never had a more friendly government than this. And this was the best time to go in for the strike. So did they feed a lot of bogus intelligence to Trump? Most possibly, yes. But logically, because last chance, because Obama was intensely hostile to any Israeli action on Iran. They're
Even
not
Joe
going to-
Biden.
even Joe Biden. So they're not going to get an opportunity like this. So this is the last window of opportunity we have till November. Let's do it now. Because maybe a round 3 is required. So let us do round 1 in March, so that if something is required, we can do something in October, November. And we can then use it to shore up Trump's popularity in October, November and claim we delivered a victory for him. Therefore, he'll trust us even more in his lame duck years. Look at it logically. From an Israeli perspective, that was very logical. That said, it is not going well for Israel right now. Because everybody right now, including India, is pissed off with Israel that, you had a right to your war. You had no bloody business passing the costs of that war on to us. So even Israel is not gaining diddly squat from this. Now, you also need to remember that there might have been internal incentives because a heavily militarized society like Israel will be in perpetual military mode. There is an Israeli interest in continuing these eliminating threats. Again, hubris, I guess, setting in. The biggest beneficiary of this war is surprisingly been China and Russia. And America.
The new order is setting in.
And America, because America, all the missiles and things that have been depleted, all the radars that have been depleted and rebuilt, who's going to get the contracts for it? Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all of them. So they've already got billions of dollars worth of orders for all the restocking. Okay. Second, they control Venezuelan oil right now. It is bartered, traded, and sold, and money received by the Americans. They will give the Venezuelans what they deem fit to give the Venezuelans. Now, because of oil prices going up, Venezuelan oil, which was not competitive because of the sea routes required, it either had to go via the Cape of Good Hope or the Drake Passage down below or through the Panama Canal. which was not allowed.
Hmm.
Well, the
Earlier.
Americans wouldn't, ever since they got control of it a few months back, kind of control. It wasn't viable. The transport, see, with the thickness of the crude, it was just a few more. That cost of reprocessing it over and over again to bring it up to modern standards, you can do it. The same fractional distillation tar does it. Not an issue. It adds very little to the actual cost. What adds to the cost is the transport.
Right.
Today, because of this and the unrestricted access Venezuelan oil has, Venezuelan oil has become very attractive and lucrative on the international market. And who's controlling that? America. So you see, always never go in for the complicated explanation, look for the simplest explanation. America is doing this for the oil, but not in a way you think it is. It's not for Iranian oil, it's for Venezuelan oil. And the repeat order for arms supplies, because all the old stocks of missiles have been depleted. You'll now order hundreds of billions of dollars worth
For
of
the same
missiles.
thing, the missile stocks and everything, the way the Gulf countries have been hammered in this, and they now understand that the security that America used to provide them is actually turning against them in this war. And there's already some talks of the Russians, Chinese, who are asking that there needs to be some kind of Middle East collective security treaty where America withdraws. And actually, that is one of the things that Iran asks for, particularly if there is any ceasefire in this war. If that happens, then I think America would be the biggest loser, because now their missile stocks, their radars and everything, they will be completely left off from the Gulf.
No. Look at it from another point of view. China has proven exactly how unreliable it is. Russia has proven how unreliable it is. This is an Iran that supplied you with the Shahid drones that turned the tide in the Ukraine war. Not turned the tide, but they stabilized it. Remember, it was the introduction of the Shahids that after that, was it a winter of 24 में बहुत severe reverse हुआ था. The Ukrainians recaptured close to 100 to 70 kilometers of territory. It's the Shahid that stabilized that. Remember, for a country like that, you're not lifting a goddamn finger. You have not supplied them with S-400, even though they've asked for it several times. They could have supplied you with lots of MiG-29s and Sukhois. Never supplied it. So who's going to trust Russia as a supplier? I can tell you one thing. Within the corridors of power, the trust in Russia and China has zero right now in the Gulf. The problem is there is a lot of trust of America that has eroded because they believe that America is treating them like a second-rate partner, whereas Israel gets first-class treatment, we get economy-class treatment, not even business class, economy class. Our security is not prioritized. Where are your ships coming to protect us? Why is it we are protecting ourselves? Where are your Aegis class destroyers coming and providing air defense? They're all sitting out off the Israeli coast providing defense for Israel. Why aren't they sitting in the Gulf providing defense for us? Even though we're low on stocks of interceptors. So remember, it is not moving, and there is a collective defense. It's called the GCC Peninsular Force.
But there's no Article 5 like the NATO Article 5.
They don't need it because they generally used to work in a very collective way. Till, first the Qatari GCC split happened, and then the Emirati Saudi split happened. The Qatar GCC split happened over terrorism. The Emirati Saudi split happened over which faction to support in Yemen. But basically, that was that. I don't think that polity is ready for a collective defense. I think without Qatar, they were, but without the Emirates, they're not. Now, in the short term, they don't, even in the long term, they don't trust Russia and China. In the short term, they might have lost trust in America, but who's going to supply them with the weapons that they require? Because France, Europe is so severely deindustrialized, they can never provide the kind of bulk that the Gulf requires. So you're stuck with one partner who's clearly treating you as an economy class partner, but you've got no other partner that can provide you in the kind of bulk and the kind of quality of intel to target those weapons also, and the fact that they have export controls over most European weapons, which all use American equipment and communications. They don't have alternatives. So it's that, in Indian politics, में TINA factor होता है ना, there is no alternative. It is the TINA factor functioning for the American allies in the Gulf right now.
And just the last thing, and if you can be like, just be very short, precise, if you can, about this. Do you think like this is a religious war? Because Israel, there is a lot of talk in Israel that there's an eschatological factor, जिसका मतलब है कि there's an according to religious dogma, it's the end.
हाँ.
How the end is perceived. हमारे यहाँ पे
So
होता है कि
they also perceive the 6-day war as the end. They perceive the Yom Kippur war as the end of days and all that nonsense. There was a Christian gospel movie called The Omega Code. If you manage to get a torrent, it's too useless to be on Netflix or Amazon, but F-grade movie. But it's interesting to view it from the sense, so what happens is the final assault on Israel has begun and thousands of MiG-29s are flying over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And God sends meteors from the sky to shoot down all the MiG-29s, literally. It's called the Omega Code. Check it out. I think it's called the Omega Code, yeah. I think it's got Gabriel marked in it. वो suits वाला, I think. I'm not sure, but I think it has. So ऐसे होता था ये. And you will have religious loonies all over. There is no shortage of religious loonies. But let's be very clear. The main driver of this has always been geopolitics. Iran has always been the regional superpower. Saudi Arabia only developed after Iran broke its ties with America, propped up as the superpower. And Israel has been the other superpower for the last 70 years. So this is basically your typical trilateral tug of war, purely geopolitical. Religion is just an added thing on it. Stupid Iranian geopolitical moves masked by religion, but not driven by religion, have been crucial to it. Remember why the Shia belt through the 50s and 60s, why was there no Shia politics? Why was Iranian politics never seen as, Iran was the dominant power in those days. Why was it never seen as Shia politics? Okay, why? Because it was turned into Shia politics by the Arabs. When Ayatollah Khomeini comes in 79, he calls it the Islamic Revolution, not the Shia Revolution. He calls it the Islamic Revolution because he has achieved what the Muslim Brotherhood said they would achieve and failed consistently in Arab countries. Now there is an alternative. What do the Arab monarchies see? Oh shit, we've crushed the Muslim Brotherhood, but here it has succeeded. Till then, it was the Muslim Brotherhood was number 2. Gamal Abdel Nasser, secularist Arab politics, was threat number 1 because he wanted to overthrow all the monarchies and he was capable of doing it also. But he dies, Sadat gets killed. Well, ultimately, after he dies, Muslim Brotherhood becomes threat number 1 because they want to overthrow the monarchies. They fail. Then Iran becomes threat number 1 because they also want to remove all the monarchies. And they don't call it Shia revolution. So what did the Arabs say? See, this is Shia. They're doing this. There's Shia. Sunni countries would never replace the Amir or the Sultan nominated by God. Because the khutbah, the Friday prayer opens with the mention of God's name followed by the Sultan or the Amir's name. So when the khutbah is read in your name, the communists were godless people. Muslim Brotherhood were deviants. Nasser, godless semi-communist fellow. How do we delegitimize this one? Shia. So that reopened the entire Shia thing. So religion is convenient out here, but Israel's policy is not driven by lunatic Jewish apocalyptical types. Just like this is not driven by madness, it is driven by Iran. A lot of it is a problem of its own making, driven by bad policy. अब इसको religious
Hmm.
angle देना है दे दो, but the driver is not religious. It's
So religion is just being used to maybe get more support for the war.
religion. See, it's I won't say it's being used unwillingly. Religion is also complicitly being used. Religion knows it's being used, it's happy being used. But religion is not the driver. Have I confused you well and good?
Very well.
Excellent. Excellent. I always aim to confuse.